Hi there, everybody. Just doing a sound check before we get started. Can you hear me all right?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. We'll just try the other mic and then we'll get going. Testing on the second mic.
Good.
Great. So just in the couple of minutes as people are trickling in, trying to see how to do this without it looking awkward. So in the couple of minutes before we get started, and please feel free to grab a cup of tea or coffee just before we begin the lesson. I'll invite Geshe down shortly. I just want to thank everybody so much for coming. And this is our regular Sunday teachings, which at the moment is on the 7-point mind training, as well as we've been going through 1 or 2 verses each session of Lama Tsongkhapa's In Praise of Dependent Arising. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about how the summer is unfolding. So we will have these regular Sunday teachings next Sunday, and then the following weekend, which I believe takes us into the 1st and 2nd of July. Hi, Cindy. Hi, everybody. Yes, we're always happy to see everybody on Sunday morning. So the 1st and 2nd of July, His Holiness the Sakya Trisur is here in Toronto. So initially we had wondered whether to schedule, but actually it turns out that on the Sunday, the event is not until 2 p.m. So we thought, well, why not have the Sunday teaching anyway? So we'll have the Sunday teaching on that 2nd of July, but instead of 2 hours long, it'll be an hour and a half. So there will be a teaching just a little bit shorter. The Saturday before that, which is the 1st of July. That will be the Haruka Chakra Samvara session for the month of July. Those teachings, you can find out about the prerequisites and how to register on our website. The 2nd week in July, we have a guest teacher, Paula Chichester. So she'll be teaching about bodhicitta. That 2nd weekend of July, she'll be teaching both Saturday and Sunday, but mornings only. And she's a really unique voice, one of the rare kind of Western people who's done probably over a dozen years in retreat, and a very, very popular teacher. So do check her out for a really interesting and engaging perspective. Then that following weekend, we have the Sunday teachings again. As we go into July and August, Geshe-la's teachings will be every other weekend. So we're a bit of a lighter schedule in the summer. However, we do have some special events. In July, I believe it's the 3rd week, but this will be posted on our website shortly. The 3rd Saturday in July will be an introduction to Vajrayogini practice for those with highest Yoga Tantra initiation. There's a lot, because Khenso Rinpoche recently gave this, there is a lot of interest in having a full commentary. Geshe-la said, one thing at a time. So we finished Chakra Samvara first, but we will have a few sessions on Vajrayogini, maybe 1 per season. So that's like, maybe 1 in the summer, 1 in the winter, 1 in the spring, like that. So the first of those will be that Saturday in July. And then as we come into August, we continue with the Sunday teachings every other week, but one of the weekends, we're going to have a special event. We're thinking a Chenrezi initiation and a commentary on Chenrezi practice. We're not sure which Chenrezi practice the commentary will be on, but that is the plan. And that will be an in-person event here in Burlington, Ontario, as well as live streamed. And I see that we are now 3 minutes past the hour, so I won't keep you waiting any longer. We'll invite Geshe-la down and we'll get started. Thanks so much for your patience. So Geshe is here. He'll just make his prostration, then we'll get started. It's just a bit worried about Geshe-la's soft voice with the microphone, but can you hear both of us?
Hello, Tashi Dele.
Can you hear him clearly? All right, and you can hear me. Okay, so we are good to go. Thank you so much, everyone. Oh, Jisungi.
Oh, yeah, Tachi Rokanga Tashi Dele Sanakawa, Yoba, so keyboard of Tani Apoyo.
So Tashi Dele, greetings to all Dharma friends, wherever you may be. Geshe-la hopes you find yourself well, and he hopes you find yourself happy.
Oh, ta Lele Chinita, keyboard Chinita, and Lecateta.
So we hope to proceed happily, relaxed, and in a stable way with these teachings. So that's the kind of motivation that we want to have.
So
remember the example of the kind of weasel or some kind of marmot that catches the little mouse outside its burrow and puts it under its behind. But then when it sees the second mouse coming, it gets up to grab the second mouse and the first one escapes. So we don't want to be like that with the teachings we are receiving, but we want to have the intention that as we listen, we create kind of a line, right? A progression within our mind. And the holy beings give a wonderful piece of advice that if we are able to reflect on the path a little bit every day, we are able to accumulate hundreds and hundreds of positive causes of virtuous karma. And actually, it is said that even if we just have one day to remain in this world, by practicing according to these stages of the path, we can make that one day worthwhile. So we want to establish, we want to accumulate these causes of happiness. And in order to do that, we need to know how exactly we should accumulate them. So the holy beings, they have a concern in terms of how practitioners are engaging with the path. And what they find is that somebody may start out with the activities at the beginning of the session in a very sort of good and positive way, but then the activities at the end of the session are rushed or incomplete. Similarly, at the beginning of the session, somebody may be very focused, but then at the end, they lose the focus. And they may be correct at the beginning and the end, but during the middle, they are not paying careful attention. So we want to have a session that is complete in the beginning, middle, and end.
다 수지 지수만 라고 치자 뭐 끊어서야 그 치자 야점 뭐 좀 뭐 대차가 이나요. 템버레 요메 단다 따지서야 수수수 수미도스.
So actually, whether one recites the Sangye Chotsukma, the verse of refuge and bodhicitta, even hundreds and thousands of times, that number doesn't necessarily mean that the practice is stable, right? One only has to reflect on one's attentiveness during the session.
빼니 뭐시 숨겨야레스. 당간주데 게와 템버레게 메베. 아니 뭐지게 다 가디나 칸데야 본데고 살아왔어. 아니 마치 자셔와데 치게 돈내라. 야게 돈내라. 그렇게 자시 라야지 지라고 살아와. 아니 치게 돈에 걸어 잘래비 갈키 템바지겐도와.
알레. 하고선. 야.
당에 단다 템바지에서. 야 지능이 칸덴데비 갈 뜨는 게 또가 잘라바레스.
알레. 야보코마son.
시시오스 칸덴데비 갈때 처음에 말지 내가 강가 제용 거 알았어.
Ale, loso. So there was a story of a lama and his attendant, and the story went something like this. He was approached about a task that had to be done, and he said, "Oh, you're asking me at the wrong time. I've now forgotten what we had to do. If you approach me when I am doing my daily recitations, that is a good time." Now, he was saying this tongue in cheek, of course, because it meant that during his daily practice, he was unfocused, so was able to think about other things. In fact, many people reflect this experience, and we ourselves may have it. We find that when we're doing our daily recitations or commitments, we actually start to remember all sorts of other things that we may have forgotten that are, of course, completely unrelated to the practice. So in order to achieve happiness, we need to achieve its causes. In order to accumulate the causes of happiness, we need to know how to accumulate them. And in order to accumulate them effectively, we need to do so with a relaxed but focused mind.
저도 몸보 저기 요하래 되는 겨와 가제 저바 이나요 다 보게 자 제주 또 제주 지면나 겨와 이제 그 지시졌다나 디비션에 세반저와니 자세 좀 쇼알라가 깨라가 시도돼
야
지시세를 될 수 있야래
야
다 된노지 So we
need to know how to set up the motivation as the foundation for the merits that we accumulate. Otherwise, as Shantideva explains in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, our merits will be small and they will be exhausted quickly, just like a plantain tree. So a plantain tree, right, it's kind of an annual that comes up and then shrivels away. So we don't want our merits to be like that.
전바도 이제 싸워지고 전주 세돈데 있더니 다 여와지 저터바 인데 됐더니 데이죠.
If we want our merits to provide a sort of constant rainfall of positivity and to be inexhaustible, then the best way is to engage in the meritorious practice rooted in the practice of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, which arises from the minds of great love and great compassion. If one does that, then one will be able to accumulate these extremely vast merits. And the result of that, according to many of the great beings and all of the great lamas, is that if one establishes the motivation in this way, one has a source of merit whose results will be inexhaustible. So as a beginning practitioner, perhaps we aren't able to bring up this bodhicitta, right, that altruistic wish for enlightenment in that full way, right, due to lack of familiarity. But as the motivation for our practice, we can bring forth great love, great compassion. We can even just bring forth regular love and regular compassion, and this will establish a very firm basis for our practice. Yeah, so also the great masters warn us that if we have not stabilized ourselves in the practices of love and compassion, then to claim to be meditating on bodhicitta is a little bit of a joke. So think on the basis of achieving this human rebirth, which endows me with this human mind and human intelligence, then I am going to, in a stable way, engage in this good task. Sorry, I just want to open the larger screen so that Geshe can see the audience a little bit better. It closed on me for some reason. I'll be right back. One moment, please. Thanks, Dave. So if you just admit the second Lama Yeshe-ling, it says second, that should help us get everyone on the screen. Awesome. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. It's nice to see everybody a little bit bigger. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. So we want to have the body and mind in a relaxed state, mainly to develop a mind that is peaceful at the beginning of practice. So let's take a moment to do that. So just like if we think of the sky and a gentle breeze that is clearing away all of the clouds that may be obscuring it, think that in this way we are gently clearing away any discursive thoughts, any distracting thoughts from our mind. So our mind is a little bit like the sky in that just like the clouds, we have all of these appearances, but we note that as these appearances arise, they also gently dissolve or fall away. So our task in this meditation is to just maybe observe these thoughts as like clouds they arise, but not follow the thoughts in the direction that they're trying to lead us. And in that way, just letting them dissolve back into the ground of the mind.
When
we allow the discursive thoughts to dissolve into the ground of the mind, then the mind's vast sky-like emptiness is able to dawn. And then as those discursive thoughts are dissolved, we have a feeling like somebody who's been carrying around two pieces of really heavy luggage. and is finally able to put them down, right? There's this relief at this spaciousness in the mind. From the mind becoming calm and vast in this way, we also see its effect on our physical body, which becomes at ease, pliant, and relaxed. So just like the nature of the empty, cloudless sky, we know that the mind's fundamental nature is unstained, unobscured by negative thoughts. These unskillful minds, projections, and stains, they are not the true nature of our mind. They are adventitious, which means that they can be removed. When we tap into this fundamental nature of the mind, we see that it is relaxed. We see that it is spacious. And on the basis of this fundamental nature, we can mix our mind with positive qualities such as love and compassion, just like milk mixing with water. From my side, as much as possible, I will try to develop these qualities in a very stable way, and I will request the assistance of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas to be able to do that. Bai chom den de chin pa dra chom pa yang da pa zo pe sang ge je pa dang sha su de pa de wa de she pa je de gen pa je gu du ve ka kyo wa la na me pa la da ge na ge tem pa sa ge chon den de pe gya wa sha gya pa la cha Dave, was that sound carrying properly? Okay, great. Okay. Dumba chomden de deshin shepa drachomba yamdaba zobe sangye repa dang shatsu demba dewa shepa shiten chemba chebu dewe kalo gyurwa lana meba ladang mi nangi demba sangye chomden de pechawa shakya dubala Chazelo Cheda Chazu Chi Dunba Chomden de Sheba Tachomba Yandaba Sobe Sangye Sheba Dang Shatsu Demba Dewa Sheba Jide Sheba Jebu Dewe Kalo Gyurwa Lana Meba Ladang Mi Namgi Demba Sangye Chomden de Bejawa Shakya Tupala Shaselo Jeda Shasuchi. Mandala offered. Soji. Jo. No. Idam Guru Ratna Medalaka Niryadaya. So the last one is refuge and bodhicitta. Chedon sogi chenam la jongshu padu tani kyapsu chi dagi chinyen ki pe sonangi jola penji sangye joba shu. Chedon sogi chenam la jongshu padu tani kyapsu chi dagi chinyen ki pe sonangi Jola Penjir Sangye Joba Sho Shedon Sogi Chenam La Changcho Pada Dani Kyatsu Chi Dagi Chenyen Gibe Sanam Ge Jola Penjir Sangye Joba Sho.
뭐야, 다 대로 노안이 쳐봤던지 샹조 로면발에 쳐봤던지 세세세 하다 나 보게 난조 손직이는 데가 여기지는 다 되니베 같이 모는 전부 이사레스.
So for those of us who truly have faith, who truly have confidence in the Buddha's teachings, then this practice of refuge, which allows us to abandon an incorrect path in favor of a correct path, and similarly this practice of the mind generation, which allows us to abandon a limited path in favor of a vast path, is very important. Dave, sorry, were you sending me a message there? I thought I saw a message come up. No, it's okay. Okay, all right.
다 대응이 이면 누가 많이 나요. 그래서 소소를 다 그게 그런 yapasitane shomba chemo ni ji chemo ta gazeta to pese ja chemo yapasita go yares.
But even if you're not a Buddhist approaching these teachings, if you just want to establish a ground of love, a ground of compassion within the mind so that the mind becomes vast, that is also a very, very wholesome motivation.
어단 좀 물린데라 시대 yapasi 그건지 다 니 대체들 같아 되와 tembochi de sono tona ta de우다 도시 모르was.
You could also think in sort of a more secular way by thinking that this world that we live in, it desperately needs peace. And so I am engaging in these practices, hoping to contribute to that. That is also a very worthy motivation.
다 던지시랜데 다 도마kalonte 가체와라. 다 kalonte 가는 거 마시 먹으셔서 메나 메 아니 되이나 되이 좀 야이자 다 같이 모레스.
And as we always say at the very beginning, the motivation is extremely important. And so we always give the example of a wholesome seed leads to a wholesome tree, whereas a poison seed leads to a tree that is poisonous. So the motivation, the reason that we engage in the practice is very important.
다 손지도 지스 드라마도 다시 레지도 좀 메모라서 봤다라는 다 누가 이메가 야야 말 시소 따나 다 소소 소하다나 그래서 맞지.
And also as we approach the beginning of our sessions and we make praises and requests to be able to help those sentient beings. If we feel more affinity with the Buddha, if we feel more affinity with Tara, if we feel more affinity with Manjushri, we can connect with whichever of those practices we want to connect and be sure that we will receive assistance.
어떤 알아서로 요약을 쇼리게 세 기와라와 그래서 자샤 유제도요 말해서 요왔더니 지금 알아.
Because we know that these holy beings, they're very different from us. They don't have this agitated mind, this biased mind that prefers some over others. So we can have complete confidence. Dave, I think some people are having problems opening their video. I see a few comments coming in. J'ai vidéo gochi tu doa. So for the folks who are having problems with the video, I just want to say there was an update on Zoom recently because I'm seeing most of the people. So on my screen, I can see the vast majority of the people. So if your Zoom isn't updated, that could be the problem. It could also just be a matter of logging in again, because I don't think the problem is from our side. Otherwise, I'd be seeing a lot of people without video, but I see most everyone has theirs on. It's okay now? Okay, great.
So
today's meditation is going to be on the objects of refuge. We're going to visualize the objects of refuge. And as a beginning to this, let us reflect on a little bit about emptiness, to think myself, others, the environment, and the surrounding. None of these exist in the way that they appear. They are empty of inherent existence. So from that sphere of emptiness, visualize in the place in front of you a beautiful teaching throne held up by 8 snow lions. And upon that beautiful throne are 3 cushions of lotus, moon, and sun seeds. And then we invite our teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni, to sit upon this visualized seat. And we have this awareness that he is in the nature one with our actual spiritual teacher, our root Lama, and in aspect, he is showing the aspect of Shakyamuni Buddha. And we can have the awareness. And if we want to visualize, we can try to visualize that surrounding Buddha Shakyamuni are all of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, root and lineage gurus, dakinis, wisdom protectors, heroes, heroines, and so forth. And think that in front of the Buddha and the other figures, if you like, are beautiful Dharma texts in the nature of light, representing the Dharma jewel, specifically the Dharma jewel of scripture. And so we can then imagine that as we visualize, sitting with us, also engaging in the practice, on either side are our father and mother, and behind them, all the 6 types of beings who inhabit samsara, who inhabit cyclic existence. For the visualization, they are in the form of humans, but we can imagine that they bring with them the suffering of whichever particular realm they inhabit. And think that all of them, together with us, bring forth this uncommon Mahayana refuge in the field of refuge or the field of accumulation that we've visualized in front of us. Think that the objects of refuge, seeing us assembled here and bringing forth this motivation to do something positive, that they show the aspect of being pleased with us, and that being pleased with us, they bestow their blessings upon us. And as we explore this meditation on refuge a little bit more, let us think of the cause of refuge. One of the causes is fear of samsara. Think, if I don't engage in refuge and the practices of accumulation and purification, the potential of all of the unwholesome karma that I've accumulated from beginningless lifetimes until now could lead me into a negative direction, into a difficult direction. Therefore, I must go for refuge. And to really develop conviction in this possible danger, think about an unwholesome thing, a thing motivated by affliction that you've done recently, and reflect upon that.
메라 때리 대지강가 바뒤에 노지 고소마지서 마토나 다 뒤에 때인데 아버서 말에 소마타 가지도 니바도.
So if I do not cultivate the antidote, which is like the medicine, then this poison of the unwholesome karma that I have accumulated, it could have a very negative impact.
지바 첨보레 되네 뇨다 첨보레 이나요 어느 때 지바 첨보레 되는 존이 다 세주전에 대게 한번 대달이 쇼비 니바 차소 요게다 개주서 총화질을 보게 니바디 요아이사 다 될었더니 대화 첨보지.
So we think about this really serious and great situation, and that leads to a very real fear. But that fear isn't something that has to discourage us, because it is not as if there is not a way to deal with this. How do we deal with this? We follow the path to protection from fear, which is to go for refuge with complete confidence to the three jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
고아도 내수는 그 요zul이다. 자도에 그로서 니바디야 상인의 짜침보레 되이자 다 대화 첨보지.
These three jewels have the complete capacity to protect us from the fears of samsara in general and the fears of the unfortunate states in particular. Have complete confidence in their protection.
대유가로서 나세 돼야 돼. 자침보 전돼야 되겠다. 이제 요주 그때한테 손지지고 뭐 마도바다 견주서 될 샤스로가 이지 아니 로데 첨보지.
So think, this I, this self, my feelings, this person that I hold on to as so important. I have also made the commitment that for the benefit of both myself and others, I must reach the state of Buddhahood, complete enlightenment. Until I reach this goal of complete enlightenment, I will continuously, in a stable way, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
예전도 맞아 손지 코로스 도바 노지가 손지 깨주 지게주 견드게주 사한테 나로서 로로 소소 그때는 나가시다 되다 토토바치서 이 소비토네 다시 주세요.
And think that I call the self, or that I call the I, whose feelings I hold as so important. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. But I also have the resolve to achieve the actual Sangha jewel, the actual Dharma jewel, the actual Buddha jewel within my continuum for the benefit of all sentient beings. And this way, connect your refuge with a meditation on bodhicitta.
로로 소소 그때서 마도바다 롱게대요 연지대요 다시 막 가와 롱게대요 다시 말했는데 대이자다 로지주 대한테 대에서 토바치 소마템 괜찮았어.
But although this is my wish to achieve that Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings, I can't even take care of my own welfare and happiness for even a brief amount of time, much less take care of the welfare of the happiness of others. Therefore, until I am able to do that, I continuously go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
그래서 도봤도 뭐 아니 지켜줘 도용이야 지켜줘 도반에 이제 소소 가디나다 기본 있는 것을 봐다 간디 기본에서
And think about it. We're going for refuge until actualization. But just for a moment, think if you can actualize just even one of these jewels, if you actualize the Dharma jewel within yourself. Once the Dharma jewel has been actualized, suffering is cleared away, and one is already abiding in a stable happiness. So we'll pause there.
어다 드니지레인데 사와다 장간 뭐지 동어들 쓰고도 와스가 구데스토시 터닝 알레레서 대학 대원
So as His Holiness says, right, actualizing that Dharma jewel, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, once I achieve true cessations, then I can finally relax, right? The same is true for us. And sometimes His Holiness even indicates, hoping to be able to achieve, or manifesting, hoping to be able to achieve true cessations in this lifetime. So that's something really incredible. So the thing here is actually, if we are able to really develop an understanding of emptiness within our mind and bring forth that understanding and abide within it, then actually we come closer, much closer to true cessations, and we come much closer to actualizing the Dharma jewel within our mind, the Dharma jewel, which is the actual refuge. So love, compassion, other practices such as generosity, such as patience, these are the excellent path that we are traveling. But if we haven't cleared the path of obstacles, of potholes and rocks and things, then we aren't able to proceed, right? Kuma? Japasana? And similarly, even if we're traveling along a good road, but there are bandits and thieves along the course of our journey, we're also going to run into a lot of difficulties. The point here is that as much as we kind of engage ourselves in the practices of love and compassion and bring forth those minds, if we don't meditate on emptiness to bring forth that wisdom realizing emptiness, we cannot completely clear that path of obstacles. The other side of this, of course, is if one, with a motivation of one's own freedom alone, meditates upon wisdom realizing emptiness and does not cultivate the practices of love, compassion, and so forth, one achieves the state of liberation for oneself, but one's journey is not complete because in that state, one cannot contribute to the welfare of others. So the Pratyeka Buddha, the solitary realizer, they may accumulate 100 eons of merit, but because they lack this bodhicitta motivation, that merit cannot be powerful. It cannot become the cause for ultimate enlightenment. So there is no better task than the one that we are engaged in to cultivate the practices of perfect method and perfect wisdom by establishing the complete path to their development within our mind stream.
Jabi punze, jabi chala jasa.
Bonse, like the z.
Yeah.
So by engaging in these practices, stay positive, thinking that I am building a great treasury, like the king's treasury of the practices of accumulation of merit and wisdom within my mind. So we will now turn our discussion to the text. Okay, yeah, so what Geshe would... Yeah, so we'll go directly to the commentary by Geshe Togme Sangpo. The links for all of this are on our website, by the way. That's the So then in terms of the preliminaries, which we have covered up till this point, Gonda Dinso Sum Younger something, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. We looked at the difficulty of finding a human rebirth with all of the freedoms and richnesses. We looked at death and impermanence, and we also examined the faults of samsara. Nguji Jiangchu Gisem. Yeah, yeah. And just as a reminder, when we talked about the preliminary of the faults of samsara, we mentioned meditating on karma, cause and effect, as much as possible to bring forth a stable faith in that. So thinking about karma from the point of view also of I want to abandon and purify unwholesome karmas as much as possible, and I want to bring forth, cultivate wholesome, virtuous karmas as much as possible. So we think about how karma is certain, how karma is increases, how actions accumulated do not perish, and how you do not meet with results of causes you did not accumulate, right? This is like the general overview of karma. So we also understand that in terms of karma, that all of the problems that we see, and also the problems that we might not be able to see within samsara, all of these arise due to unwholesome karma that was accumulated. Similarly, the slightest happiness, even the smallest kind of happiness, has as its cause a virtuous karma. Things do not arise at random without causes. So and just to kind of outline how important these preliminary practices are, we know that Buddha Shakyamuni did not start out as enlightened. We know that Buddha Shakyamuni was a human being first, just like we were. And it is through cultivating the awareness of the human rebirth with all of its freedoms and richnesses, contemplating death and impermanence, and developing a deep conviction in the faults of samsara, that the Buddha was able to eventually reach enlightenment. So the same is true for us.
Yeah. 신구야이자 오다 대존지 대시 다도 되려면 됐어 하고서라 다 델리 연다지 때에 요사 된노르지 오다 간돌 테마도 아마레 저로 달로도 리바만 나와지 와이자 તને જેંદો સોનો તો એરામાં મંદિર સેન્ટરે સુગંધ વાસ.
So the Buddha, in his spiritual journey, right, he set out seeking happiness, and he studied with very many fine teachers of the various kind of spiritual traditions of India that were available at the time. And he received instructions from those teachers, and he really did his best to practice. And at the same time, those teachers were honest and upstanding people. So when he meditated for a week or something like that, and then he thought, I'm experiencing happiness, I'm experiencing bliss, but I don't see that ultimate happiness that is the extinguishing of problems. When he brought that to those teachers, they answered honestly. They said, this is the complete path that we have to offer. If your mind is seeking something else, you must seek that path elsewhere, right? So they gave the Buddha the courage to doubt.
오다 저기도 왔어. 오다 전에 손지가 로주 가와시 검자네다. 오다 전에 좀 말했어.
라? 상계네.
매매 로주 가와시 로주를 고자네라. 로주를 검자네 주고 와 손지.
말이 나송은 상계 코 상마경어라 코 게겐젠다
시시 오스 인라 마송와스 코미네다 말더니 코로코로 고자네라. 아니 다 손지 도비가 다 놓었네.
So it was through the Buddha kind of going off and following his own path of cultivation that he was eventually able to reach enlightenment. Yeah, and we can come to more discussion of that later. So if we have faith in cause and effect, we understand that results come from causes, which means that if we want success in our practice, if we want these benefits, we have faith that we must accumulate the causes, right? That's how it works. So we're going to now turn. So we'll look briefly at the root text by Geshe Chekowa. Los Josas. Yeah, Josan.
Niji shonju je sejunwa.
Yeah. Sao ngishi jangju gisan no. Yeah.
Jwa chino malota som ma she ri bi shi la chi nyambo ni ju ru sa tro ngo ku ji ngo la ja tzo ji mi shi wa sha.
Oh, de la sha. So, in terms of the root text, we are in section number 2. This is all on page 1. Section number 2, the main practice. Consider all things and events as dreamlike. Examine the nature of unborn awareness. Let even the antidote be freed in its own place. Rest in the alaya. So alaya is another word for consciousness, the essence. Between sessions, be a conjurer of illusions. Kandis. So Geshe is just explaining that we talk about the 7 points of mind training. So we are now on point number 2. So the actual mind, bodhicitta, is kind of like half of point number 2. There's more about point number 2 that will come later. And when we look at the point regarding bodhicitta, we understand that bodhicitta has 2 aspects, relative and ultimate, and that within this text we actually begin with ultimate bodhicitta. So now we will turn to the commentary, and for those of you who are wondering where we are in the commentary, we should be on the second page. So as we go on page 2, we're about halfway down. Number 2, the main practice. Training in bodhicitta has 2 parts. Training in ultimate bodhicitta and training in relative bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta. This consists of 3 sets of practices: the preparation, the main part, and the conclusion.
용인 주스라 차서.
라팽.
다시 안도 세지 년도 돈을 하도 라마로 단대 할래 같이 못 다서 가서.
The Cambodia Jorwa.
안도 세지 년도 돈을 하도 라마로 소와다데 열라 덤바 펀이 리 좀본 두테 유선 선로동 농도 예시 짜지게 봐도 마트 봐 하체 매바 농데 디 소테지 년도 중앙 저로.
So you'll see actually how what we're doing here connects with what Geshe shared at the beginning of the teaching. As the preparation, take refuge and generate bodhicitta. Then pray to the deity and the guru and offer the 7 branches. Sit up straight and breathe in and out 21 times without any confusion, omission, or addition. This will help to make you a suitable vessel for meditative concentration.
반대편 무슨 봐야 보신도 왔어. 너진이 괜히 시부터 막 가시고 숨기야래. 네들이 또만이지 거기에서 논서 고자지요 말했어. 다들이 또만이지 거기도 다 소소 디세 여보요나. 하고 살아와서 얼레레 진했더니 제와 되지 다 조사 들고 제와 샤이시 다 어때들이 여보 진 다들이 같은 또만이 년에 저기 갈라쇼라 노로 시세나 봐 뭐도 못투바 노지 소소 봐서 와야 봤다 그랬어.
So the holy beings, right? It's really important to understand their way of practice. So, of course, meditation on emptiness is really important, but we understand that they don't kind of just plop themselves on the cushion and start meditating on emptiness, at least not in their earlier stages of practice. They think, I want to meditate on emptiness. Therefore, I need to receive blessings. And then they engage in the practice of going for refuge, making offerings, all of the aspects of accumulation and purification. And then in front of the visualized field of refuge, they make requests. I wish to be able to meditate on emptiness. Please grant your blessings that I may be able to do this effectively. So when we do it like this, right, when we put all of the components in place, then there's some hope, right, that the meditation is going to be really effective for our mind. But if as a beginner, we kind of just put ourselves on the cushion and try to just meditate on emptiness with no preliminaries, it's going to be difficult. So very important information here, right, about visualizing the field of accumulation, offering the 7 limb practices, then making petition for realization to the deity of the field of accumulation, understanding that he is inseparable from your root spiritual teacher. And then in order to prepare the subtle body, the subtle winds, and so forth, engaging in a meditation on the breath, and ideally trying to count to 21. So, of course, as we talk about this meditation upon the breath and counting to 21, if we are just doing this to kind of create a space of equanimity, to tap into the mind's neutral nature, thinking, breathing in, I'm aware I'm breathing in, breathing out, I'm aware I'm breathing out, that mindfulness of the breath, it is going to help us achieve that even state of mind, right? But it's not going to help us purify and accumulate. So if we can combine this meditation on the breath, thinking as I breathe in, I am receiving blessings and so forth, and as I breathe out, I am clearing away unwholesome negative karmas, then that meditation becomes even more powerful. So we, So we are continuing at the bottom of page 2 and going on to page 3. For the main part, the root text says, consider all dharmas as dreamlike, as this indicates the whole environment and the beings within it, which we perceive as objects, are dreamlike. That is to say, they appear as they do because our own minds are deluded, and not as a result of even the slightest factor aside from mind. We must therefore put a stop to our projections.
다 공자비 갈다 나로솔다 시가 porque nessa não anda manda não azonda não anha bala sobanda manda mombochi no nela akosarwa tá tele kashi yatra ba kashi dura bala sobatani mombo no ne ti shul no ne anzukange mombo yungi ares.
So when we sit down and try to meditate, there's all sorts of appearances, outer appearances that we're going to try to have to contend with. Some of the appearances will be positive. Some of the appearances may be negative. We may be thinking of wholesome things. We may be thinking of unwholesome things, but we need to try to stop the mind going to those appearances, to those objects of distraction.
다 세좀비 따와던데 와 이노 다 대지 강가로로 소소가 보게 세가 노아 존지려마도 요 그런 게 버게 노아 노지지 텐데 요 말에 선바지니 봐 노아데 이 다티마 이와 노지는 이 매와서 그가레스.
So we can take a Chittamantran, a mind-only approach to this, and think all of these appearances that are arising, they do not exist from their own side. They are merely created by the mind. And in this way, we can dissolve those appearances back into the ground of the mind. This is kind of like a Chittamantran way of thinking about it.
다 세가 노아 존지래도 마도 그러 여거로 실로르더니 세 판론이 진노아지래도 마도 아까서와 다 여거로 그게 니네를 실로르더니 여바지래 마도 선바시나 다 세좀에 따와서 배도 제모지 용기하레스.
So here the Chittamantran, or the mind-only view, which is that whatever external appearance we see, this only is happening because of an imprint that is ripening from the mind. So in this way, all appearances depend only upon mind. Using this mind-only view as a way of dissolving those distracting appearances can be extremely effective.
가시가 저 통용이야래 가시가 나타 통용이야래 가시가 저 통용이야래 다 소소 세거로 봐 너네 노아지래도 마도 이 코를 따야래 마도.
And of course we know this classic example, right, that illustrates this mind-only view. You have a cup filled with liquid, and it is perceived by the devas, by those in the celestial realm, as nectar. It is perceived by human beings as water. It is perceived by the pretas, the hungry ghosts, as pus, and so forth. So this illustrates that each of those beings is perceiving that appearance due to their own mind.
And if
we think in this way, then we can think that these appearances, they do not exist from their own side. They are merely a projection of the mind. And in this way, we can dissolve the distraction.
And
if we cultivate this mind-only view, and we think that if that appearance of what is attractive, what is pleasant, is merely a projection of my own mind, then it doesn't make any sense to get attached to it. Similarly, this idea that something is not going right, some sort of appearance that makes me angry, if we think that that unpleasant appearance is merely arising due to my mind, then there's no reason to get angry. If you have this kind of Chittamantran idea that whatever is arising is an appearance of the mind, it's actually a great way not to be upset all the time, right? What is there to be stressed about if everything is just an appearance of the mind? And this explains also, right? The mind-only view can explain why people experience something so differently. In this moment, there might be some people who are happy. There might be some people who are unhappy. In the same house, there might be a person who is happy and content in the house, and there might be a person who is absolutely miserable. In the same job, and so forth, right? In this way, right, we understand that it's because what they are perceiving is coming from their own mind.
그래도와서 오다 드니존에 따그래 생각 놓아지 마도 뭐도 선바시는 달래래 대토야 샤바도 던지기쇼를 마론 쟤는 내바시 토야 말레스.
If we think that all of these appearances that are arising are merely fabrications of the mind, then there is no reason to be upset or worried.
오다다 못때만 로이로와 다오나 아니 시치든 뭐도나 원아 세대 가르쳤어.
So now we come to another question. Okay, well, if those appearances aren't real, what about the mind? What is that like? So then the text begins to explain that.
This way, that my this one, Seni Denona, Mashi Ripishila, Jesu de Seni, Shenga Nesan, Tonshi, Kato, Ila Subamela, Ligishono, Konda, Manepi.
So we continue. That is to say, they appear as they do because our own minds are deluded and not the result of even the slightest factor aside from mind. We must therefore put a stop to our projections. We might then wonder whether the mind itself is real. So the root text says, examine the nature of unborn awareness. Mind itself is empty of the three stages of arising, remaining, and ceasing. It has no color, no shape, and so on. It does not abide outside or within the body. It has no fixed character at all and cannot therefore be apprehended in this way. Rest in an experience beyond thought.
So the
holy beings also say that although it's not the definitive view, this mind-only school, this Chittamantran school, is also very helpful for us in terms of being able to observe the law of karma, of cause and effect. But what do the middle way schools say is the problem with the mind-only view? They say that the mind-only view is holding that there's an inherently existent aspect to the mind, right? And we should know that there is no inherent existence at all. So that's the problem they posit. Again? Yeah. Yeah.
That Ina di tin the Shiro you tend the me the Kondolato Yarwas.
Shiro den the Mesana?
Oh, that take him
sorry.
So
we say that everything that appears is an appearance of the mind, right? There's nothing from the external side.
This way. Oh, that Lishno Kokunago, Manipichu, Matrip, Kondo, Manzapa, Tanisa, Tatandiga Selchilesona, she Chines a Kanga, or a second Wachimato, Koronzus and Mandu, Sombashina, Gojan.
So as we continue, rest in an experience beyond thought. And as you do so, if any thought of an antidote, such as considering the body and mind are empty, should arise. So actually what we're doing here is we are resting in this awareness that everything that is arising is an appearance of the mind. And so we should meditate that because whatever is arising is an appearance of the mind, whatever that object seems to be, it has no stable, pinpointable essence.
Oh, this one. Oh, Terry. Ta Lila should Matanja in the tap, Telly to Yagaras. Oh, Tama Tanja in she, Chikanga, Lolo, Molonoji. So say pass over on your tomato. You couldn't in the good so much.
So Prasangakas, they say that all phenomena are like dreams, right? They take this a step further. All phenomena, including the mind, are like dreams. If we try to find some even sliver of pinpointable essence, we will not be able to find it.
This one, Penamologan Nicoleta, Yenda, Madazunina, which no young Inayo. Maloloya Mangoshis on the Tekanga Malogas, that's Hegunolo Patasona, Korosholon, the Runginim, Yamaris.
Kalisundangang, the Tesco. So when they help us on Hakos,
it is Malogan Noazunga Kandi, Yoba Pass Hegun on the Pashas on us. Pashas, then you Korongini, Zava in a user on a Yamon, you take a little.
So the Prasangakas say that all phenomena are dreamlike. So imagine that we're in a dream and we're experiencing the environment and all of the appearances within the dream, right? But once we realize it is a dream, if we are able to realize it is a dream, we see that nothing that we are perceiving has any essence whatsoever. And all of those appearances just fall away.
대치고자 다 생걸로 하나 세코로 가르려 잘라바이나 어떻게 세코로 가르려 잘라바이나 세코로용 깨징아실로다 파치 자바이나 지레산 저 주사진문도.
But what do the Prasangakas say about the mind then? How are they explaining the mind in a way that is different? They say that the mind is merely kechikmares.
세 깨지 미세 깨지 아마 뭐라 때문에 봤다 봐. 심말라 때문에 따봐 뭐 어디 초바지래는만 세 그런 데에서 그 주사지 라야만 돼.
Mind is a series of moments, of previous moments of consciousness based upon previous moments of consciousness based upon previous moments of consciousness. Therefore, if we try to pinpoint some stable essence of a mind, we will not be able to do so. So that's what the middle way consequentialists, the Majjhimaka Prasangakas say.
빼나냐 드타동 다와동 냐마 잘라바이나 디세 뭐지 치르르서는 걷다바 존지래도 마도 건저 주사지 라야만 돼.
So the mind, to illustrate this, we can think about increments of time. So a year is posited upon a series of months. A month is posited upon a series of weeks. A week is posited upon a series of days. Those larger increments are only designated independents upon the smaller ones. It's the same when we speak about the mind or consciousness.
아까서와서 왔다 얘도 이제 니가라 다 드리고 바가제 때때 권다 워치는 템보치는 타마타마테 고용만도 소바시아 보시나 다 디톨터네 바가제 때도 녀바샤 아레스.
So we have to think about the lack of inherent existence of both the object and the object possessor. In other words, the object and the subject, the observer. When we are able to progress, in our meditation to the point that we think that they have no aspect of inherent existence at all, then we are doing things correctly.
마시 리피시라 제 사디 열제 바시지 또.
Again.
마시 리피시라 제 사와진 두아스. 나 대원노라레스 마시 리피시라 제 상게. 보여줄 때도 미치지요.
Yeah.
Rest.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So examine the nature of unborn awareness. So examine the nature of unborn awareness. This is talking about the side of the object. Let even the antidote be freed in its own place. This is mainly talking about the object possessor, or to use more everyday language, the subject. When both the object and the object possessor are understood to lack even an atom of inherent existence, then how could afflictions such as attachment even arise? And putting that attachment and aversion aside, even the ignorance grasping at the self will not really be able to operate in one who has this knowledge.